Hello, everyone, and welcome to the movie cast for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. This will be a complete spoiler review, so if you somehow still have not seen this movie, come back later and watch our review because we are spoiling everything. So, I am your host, Dana. I am joined by Mr. OG Captain Britain. How are you doing, Gary?
Hey, what's up, everyone? Good to be here. It's been a while since I've been on one of these Marvel recaps, so I'm happy to be here. So thanks for having me, Daniel.
How are you doing, Mr. Vic's Vapor Rub?
You know how I do. I'm always here, curing all the diseases, doing everything I can. What's up, people? Thanks for having me again. This is going to be a really interesting discussion with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I'm curious to know what everyone thinks about it.
Mr. Seeley of the Chris.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? I was wondering. I dreamt that there was a universe where Phase 4 didn't suck.
Uh-oh.
Whoa,
Uh-oh.
he's
Wow, Chris once again.
starting off like that. Wow.
He hates everything. Why change now? And how are you doing, Mr. Big Stepper of the Multiverse?
Doing fantastically well. Very curious to hear what everybody has to say about this movie today.
hmm And I am Reed Spaghetti because spaghetti. So I really wanted to get everyone's quick thoughts right away of after you came out that theater. What was you thinking when it came to this movie? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Mom up, OG Captain.
Okay, yeah. So I think I kind of tweaked my expectations of this movie, like going into it. So like I wasn't going in with because I saw it a week after. Like I literally saw it yesterday, so I'm seeing it a week after like everyone's already seen it. And I didn't get all the spoilers and everything. I mean, I did get some of them, but from what I was like hearing from people, it wasn't what they expected. So then I lowered my expectations, and coming out of the movie I actually ended up enjoying it. Like I enjoyed what I saw because I wasn't expecting it to be at the level of a phase 1 or phase 2 Marvel film at that point. So based on what my expectations were, I was actually entertained with what I saw, and I was quite satisfied. I do have a lot of questions, of course, but yeah, coming out of it, I was satisfied. I saw a decent movie. It was a decent experience. So I was cool with it. But I'm keen to see what the other thoughts here are. So
All right. What about you, Mr. Big Stepper?
Well, I thought the movie was okay. I think visually the movie was fantastic because I saw it on the Dolby Cinema screen, and yeah, that looks great visually. Um, but of course, I know Marvel likes to hype up their movies, so that's why I also had to tweak my expectations going into this movie. I did have some issues with the movie. We'll get into that later, but I'll just say I thought it was okay, and unfortunately, for as far as Marvel movies go for this year, clearly this is, I think, the only decent one because the Sony Morbius movie was complete garbage. So that's just my opinion,
Whoa, 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 whoa.
What's that?
I mean, but I haven't seen it, but I can understand.
Okay, well, we're not going to spoil that movie, but yeah, this was definitely better than that, without a doubt.
Yeah, you're not missing
Yeah.
out anything on Morbius. Really not. What about you, George Romero?
So I I saw the Rotten Tomato score before the movie came out, the critics one. Marvel movies, every time they come out, specifically MCU movies, every time they come out, they always get high scores. Always. It's almost, it's rare to find a low scoring one than a high scoring one. And I saw Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and it had a 74% or 70 something. It currently is at a 74. And I thought to myself, oh, this might be good. Because it's people when stuff is was not critically acclaimed, especially for formulaic Marvel movies, it might be a good thing because they're kind of trying to stretch their wings and doing something different. So I went into the movie with and I didn't have high expectations because I wasn't the biggest fan of Doctor Strange 1. And obviously, phase 4 isn't my favorite phase. It's a common theme for a lot of folks in this discussion. And I saw the movie. I came out of the movie, uh, and I thought to myself, was this movie as bad as I think it is? And I feel, I'm. It's not that I'm conflicted. I think I'm more disappointed because there are aspects of this movie that are pretty good. Um, some of the direction, some of the Sam Raimi-ness of this movie, I really appreciate it. But I felt like this movie overall was a mess, and it didn't really fit into anything through the overall uh, aspect of what the MCU and what the multiverse is supposed to be, or what they've set up so far, especially with the Loki series. So overall, I'm I'm extremely disappointed. I feel like this is an average to below average movie, well, especially for an MCU standards. There's a lot of really junk movies in the MCU. So I would put this in the below average to average tier.
Shots all the way fired. What about you, Seely?
So after I saw the movie, I thought it was okay, and then when I started thinking about it and breaking it down, that's when I started to get mad because this movie should have just been called Scarlet Witch and the Multiverse of Madness. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, this was WandaVision Part Two, right? This is just following
Yes.
up that series and just giving her an arc, and but she's the only one who had an arc. You introduced America Chavez, no arc. She's just running around screaming and running away from giant eyeballs and octopus creatures and whatnot, and Doctor Strange is saving her, and he basically babysits her through this movie till the end. And it's Wanda's the bad guy. It's Wanda after all, instead of Agatha. And just to I don't know. I mean, we'll go into details, but as I started to pull apart things, and I got mad, and I found out there was like a lot of reshoots for this movie. Which anytime there's extensive reshoots of a movie, it makes it a mess, and I could see it happening on the screen. Just didn't make sense. I don't know why Doctor Strange was so reviled when he got to the main other universe. Um, and it's like, hey, Scarlet Witch is really bad. She's like pulling demons from other universes and hunting this girl down. But you're the problem. What? It just, oh, it's just, it was bad. I don't like bait and switch stuff. And I feel like that's where we're going with phase four. We just have a whole bunch of bait and switches. I can't wait for Thor because that they laid that out in the trailer. That's setting up Natalie Portman Thor, right? They didn't even hide that. So that's what we get to look forward to. We get to look forward to all the failed comics coming to the big screen.
Ouch, good lord. Um, for me, I know that when I came out the theater, I hated it. I sent like Gary and Richard a monologue about how much I couldn't stand it with a complete breakdown. But I wanted to touch kind of upon what you said previously. This did feel like a WandaVision in the multiverse of madness. And so, with that said, I was wondering, you look back at it, both Doctor Strange and Wanda are pretty kind of awful people. Obviously, Wanda more so. If you look at the progression of Wanda going all the way back from Age of Ultron, remember she put the seed of Ultron in Tony Stark's head. She joined Ultron in order to kill the Avengers. Then it was the whole thing with WandaVision. Not sure if everyone saw it, but she enslaved the entire town where they were begging her to just kill them already. And we still don't know where their children went. So it seemed like a natural progression of evilness for me, but I feel that they are kind of using the dark hold as an excuse as to why she's evil. But do you feel that she was already evil, she slowly became evil because of the dark hold, or the dark hold exacerbated who she really already was? Anyone wants to take this?
I just feel like it was conveyed in a really bad manner, especially considering that you had to watch WandaVision in order to understand this movie, which they said previously that you didn't need to. Um, I just don't know what her arc is. Her arc is okay, she went from a bad guy to a good guy, and then she went from a good guy to a bad guy, and then she redeemed herself by getting Agatha, and somehow went back to a bad guy, and then she kind of maybe killed herself to sacrifice for the greater good because she saw that her kids hated her. That's what it took. I mean, that was disappointing, and I agree. This whole this movie should have at least been called Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange, or Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch, or something like that, because calling it Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is it wasn't even a multiverse of madness. It was just, we're going from one universe to the other. They had no correlation to one another. They had no impact to one another. It didn't really follow what Loki established. Um, it was a mess, and yeah, the whole Scarlet Witch, even though I enjoyed the way she was portrayed, um, all, the creepy side, the, killing the beat, she was ruthless as hell in this movie, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like that's like the standout thing for me in this film is like seeing
Hmm.
Scarlet Witch in that, in that persona, like where she's doing bad things and doing evil things, because that kind of reminds me a bit of the comic book version of her. And House of M is like one of my favorites as well. So I kind of like seeing this other darker side of the character. But I do agree that her arc is confusing because it's like she goes from good to bad to good to bad, and like it's like, yeah, because like the way she was introduced to us in was it phase two, I think, or whatever. It's like she
Yeah.
seems completely different from that character now. And I mean, I know she's been through some things, but it's like, I don't know. I just feel like they didn't handle the whole entire arc in a well enough manner to where it feels, it feels like it it is plausible. So
Mhm.
yeah, so I kind of agree with what Carlos was
I,
saying. Go ahead, Rich.
I just want to make a quick comment, then we'll go back to Carlos. I know that Mr. Gary Swaby, Dana, and myself, we record another show that I'm not going to mention because the show was a disaster. It had a disastrous first season.
Oh,
Um, but I know that Gary made a comment about the main character on that show being overpowered. So I found it interesting that he made and said that he likes Wanda overpowered in this movie because, yeah, she was overpowered. Um, I just want to make that comment. No, go ahead, Gary.
Oh yeah, yeah. She for sure. Like she because I feel like she was more powerful in this movie than like in Infinity War and all the other movies where she should have been more powerful. It's like in this
Yep.
one she's suddenly like, this big threat and everything. Um but yeah, I just feel like this is supposed to be a Doctor Strange movie, but it's really a Wanda movie. She was like the star of the movie almost. So
Yeah, yeah, she no doubt about it. She was the main star. I agree with what Chris and Carlos said as well. That this should have been about her in terms of the title of the movie, but I guess they wanted to get people in the theaters so they can see how Doctor Strange's story continues after what happened in Spider Man. Um, but yeah, I agree that she was the only one that had a complete arc. If you think about WandaVision in this movie, she is the only character. I do not like the fact that America Chavez was in no other movies, yet this is somebody who has multiverse powers. And I understand she was supposed to be in Spider Man, but I believe it was. I believe Chris made the comment about you could tell that there were reshoots. I definitely could tell there was a reshoot when I saw this character come out from out of nowhere, and I said, "Oh, they must have." Specifically, when they rewrote the script or whatever, that's when they decided let's add this character to the story, and so now we give her a purpose in this movie. But I think that if this is somebody who was so important to the multiverse, we should have saw this character, whether it was in Loki or any other show. You should have seen something from this character, and they didn't have to go into a lot of detail. You just see maybe she makes a cameo appearance, she doesn't say anything, and then you wonder who was this character they keep showing. Then in this movie, you could have got an answer, but I didn't like the fact that they didn't really dive into that character in anything else aside from this movie, and I think that was the issue as well.
Anyone else want to dive in? Yep, Chris.
Yeah, I think this movie committed a few cardinal sins from the established Marvel formula that we've been used to. The first is like, why were both post credit scenes focused on Doctor Strange? Why do we get King is coming, right? That he's supposed to be the big bad of this whole phase 4, right? And he's establishing Loki. And this has a loose connection to Loki, but I don't know, like, multiverse and time variance, if that's the same thing or not, if they're trying to say it's the same thing. But why do we not see Kang or get a hint of him in these movies? We don't see a statue of him. There's no hint of him anywhere. Like Reed Richards could have mentioned him, doesn't. No mention of him. And then, like, so what? And one of the scenes just felt like hacked together. Like he just walks outside and his third eye opens up. I'm like, that's a post credit scene, you know. And then of course, like, Sam Raimi just threw in the fun scene where Bruce Campbell stopped punching himself in the face, and it's like, okay, that's funny, but that's not really a post credit scene. That's like a joke, you know. It's almost like
Yeah.
Sam Raimi is glad this movie's over. He's like, yes, I'm done with this fucking movie, you know. I didn't feel like, I felt like the joke was more on Kevin Feige than it was on for us, for our benefit. And you know, it's kind of weird. And then secondly, like, all your cameos, you pulled all these characters together, you gave fans what they wanted with John, however you pronounce his last name,
Krasinski.
Krasinski. Yeah,
Krasinski.
fans willed that man to be Mr. Fantastic. I
Mhm.
swear they gave it to them. Here he is. He's Reed Richards, right? And then you pulled out Patrick Stewart. You put him in the yellow chair. They even play the little song from the '97 X-Men cartoon when he rolls into the scene. I'm like, holy shit! They gave him all this stuff. They did Peggy Carter as Captain Carter and all this stuff to make everybody happy. And then they all get unceremoniously murdered by Wanda in like 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes. Like, holy shit! I mean, they even put Anson Mounted for Black Bolt from the Inhumans show that nobody watched. And you know, and it's like, can you imagine if in No Way Home, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield get murdered? Like, oh, we brought your fan favorites back here. They're gonna get unceremoniously killed by their villains. Like, you know, it's the multiverse. Who cares? No, they didn't do that. So I was like, why would you do this? Like, why, you know? And that's the joke of, of Tina's name, Richard Spaghetti. That's how he ended up on the floor.
Yo,
Like,
Chris,
yeah.
I will say I did appreciate the way Professor X died in this movie. Then, you know, those shards of glass that that made him into like thin
Oh, like
glasses.
he got vaporized in, like, what,
Yeah,
X3? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, smiling as he got pulverized by glass. Yeah, well, this one, I feel like he would have fought a little more. Like, he goes in there and then he tries to get, I guess, good Wanda out of the thing, and then he just stops when the red fog comes to kill him. Like, he just gives up. I was like, what? Why wouldn't he, like, move or do some mind trick? I mean, this guy's the most powerful telepath in the Marvel universe. Like,
Yeah.
he literally
Right.
could dive into people's minds. He could do all. He can lock personalities away. Why didn't he fight more? He just kind of gave up, and then she murdered him.
Yeah, and like that was my main this entire Illuminati thing was my main critique of the film. It's like, Marvel, you're really just teasing us at this point, and this is
Hmm.
very disappointing that you chose to introduce Reed Richards and
Mhm.
Professor X into the universe in this fashion, like, and just made them look completely weak, like, just, dismantled them in 5 minutes. Like, that was
Oh,
horrible. And then also teasing the Illuminati, because like, Illuminati was one of the things I was hoping to see in the MCU, and to just have it like this introduced in the multiverse, and, like, it just it's like a mockery. It comes off as a
oh,
mockery almost, like, so I didn't like that they do that. I would rather they left that entire segment out of the movie if that's what they were going to do, because now, if they try to introduce these characters again, it's not going to feel as special now, like, because you
oh.
already kind of, you know yeah.
Well, I just want to make a comment. I agree with everything you said, Gary, but my response to that is what Marvel is going to say. Well, these are clearly just variants of the characters. They can always come back
Oh,
as
yeah.
another version. But I agree 100%. And honestly, that was the biggest criticism I had of the movie as well. That I did not like that you would introduce these characters only for them to meet their end. And again, I know you're trying to show that Wanda is OP. That's fine, whatever. But I just feel like for the people that have been waiting for them to see what is going to be MCU's version of the X-Men. Everyone knows Professor X is associated with the X-Men, so I kind of feel like that's a cop out to introduce this character only to kill him in the same movie. I did not like that at all, and I did see. Obviously, they have plans for these actors to return again, but I just don't think they would need it to be introduced in this just to show you, okay, let's show them getting killed. And the last point I will mention before we go to whoever is next, the thing about the Reed Richards thing that really made me angry is the dialogue he had with Wanda. Wanda says, he says, "Oh, I have kids." And then she says, "Oh, so they have someone to take care of them after I kill you." I'm mad because now I want to see Invisible Woman get her revenge on Wanda. And now that probably is not going to happen because, well, it's going to be different variants. So it's going to be completely oblivious. But they introduced that thing as a potential showdown between the Fantastic Four and Wanda. Now you're probably not going to get that because I assume that Wanda did not make it at the end of the movie. So I just don't like that. But that's just my opinion. Again, it's my opinion.
Since we're jumping all over the place of the multiverse of this movie, can I bring up the point that why couldn't she just jump into a universe where Vision's still there?
Because he wasn't important anymore. She didn't even care about him. Did she even mention him? I think she mentioned him
No.
once in that fake forest thing where Doctor Strange was totally goofy and telling her the entire plot of the movie. And she went, "Oh, gee, thanks for letting me know." And then she unravels it and like, "Ha, I'm the bad guy." Like, why would
Yeah.
he do that? Like, I feel like when he got snapped back, his brains didn't get snapped back with him because I feel like this man is no fool. Like, why would he have exposed all that information to her in the beginning of the movie just so she could show up like an anime villain to the Tibetan monks' palace and then
and,
unceremoniously murder them? Uh,
and, and
it's
you know
just
what?
ridiculous.
And you know what, Chris? To go along with your point, I also will question what the hell were they thinking that they actually had a chance to stop the Scarlet Witch? All those people, oh yeah, we're going to put up our defenses and stuff. That they had absolutely no chance in hell of beating her.
Right? Yeah.
So
That was so. It would be like he should have went back and said, "Guys, I really goofed up. I told her where we are. Yo, just move to the moon, move wherever you got to, like just go somewhere else, like and hide, find a place to hide in the mirror universe, wherever you got to go, because the whole place is compromised and everybody leave. That should have been the thing, not like, oh, we're gonna stay and fight. Like, really? Because you know how powerful she is. You know, you might not make it. You might all get killed, and then that's pointless because she's just going to take America Chavez and then kill her so she could punch holes in the universe and go find her kids, which is all she cared about. And it's like, who's the father?
Hmm.
Who's in the universe where she has kids? Like, who's the dad? Is it Vision? Is he like Data? Is he fully functional? Like, how does that work?
oh, she's a single mom.
Yeah, yeah, right. You know, it's like I don't know. Like they never address that. You never see anyone else. Also, when she puppeteers other Wanda to go murder everybody, and then they leave her there in the place. The good MacGuffin gets destroyed. The Book of Vishanti or whatever, which we never get to see used because she just burns it in 2 seconds. Then they leave her there, and she throws Doctor Strange into the destroyed universe, and then she unpossesses Wanda, and then all she does is get up and go, "Oh, my boys," and she flies off like she left the oven on. It's like, did you take a second to look around and like none of this bothers you? Like nothing around you, but like she must have flown past every dead body. Reed Richards spaghetti, Black Bolt's head blown open, and she went, "Ah, what happened here? Well, I left the oven on. I gotta go."
Yeah,
That
I agree, and I wanted to go back to the whole Illuminati's thing, since I feel like that's like the point of contention with everyone. Um, I did I did appreciate the fact that it was brutally done. It's like the MCU doesn't really do this. The whole thing with what's the name of the first dude that died with his mouth closed?
Black
Black
Bolt.
Bolt.
Black Bolt.
Black Bolt. Yeah, the way he died, I was like, oh, dirt. It was crazy. I like that part. But I also understand, and it was made clear that this group that quote unquote defeated Thanos was so incompetent. I'm like how can you make this group with all the member berries, all the fanfic casting that everyone wanted, with characters, Peggy Carter's in this, and it's like, and you made them so inept. It's like, I understand you have Wanda is going to be stronger than them, and that's the point of this scene. But at least make them seem a little bit more competent to to the standards that this universe, the history, the like, you don't bring up the to just get obliterated by someone. Put up a fight. I mean, I would have appreciated that more.
Well, wouldn't they have like coordinated and defended each other? We're supposed to believe these guys beat their Thanos, right? They show the scene where they executed their Doctor Strange, and Thanos is in the corner over there, impaled and dead. Like they killed him in like what would have been our Infinity War before he even had all the stones. They murdered him. They don't even have dirt on them. Like that's how easy it was for them to kill him. So you killed Thanos in like 2 seconds. Wanda somehow is unstoppable to them. They just get unceremoniously murdered. How does that make any sense?
Yeah, the MCU is pretty bad at balancing the power levels at this point, I think.
And Gary,
So,
you know what scene I really, one of my favorite scenes in the MCU, like, and it's so fucking perfect. It's showing it, the way you can show a villain being superior than everyone, but still show the competency of the people trying to fight, and the fact that it was well done. It was in Titan when Thanos was fighting Iron Man and Spider Man and 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 the Guardians of the Galaxy. Like that's how you do a scene like that. Like, this is a fucking big spectacle movie, a big budget movie. This movie didn't have any of those scenes. And it's like, obviously the Russo brothers are not involved, it's Sam Raimi, but you could have done something like, from that scale. Wanda at the end of this movie, Wanda at the end of End War was fighting freaking Thanos one on one. And they're going back and forth. So we know what type of villain she is now, and we couldn't had a scene like that where we can show the Illuminati putting up a fight as good as, at least as good as what the Avengers did in Titan. Like, I felt like that would have been more appreciated.
uh,
Well, also, oh, sorry, Rich, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to ask a quick question for everybody here. Just and this is the last thing I'll say about Illuminati. So, in regards to Professor X, meeting his end, you guys don't think that Marvel did this to show Fox, listen, we are in full control of these characters now. We don't give a damn about anything that y'all did prior to this, and we are the superior ones. So we now going to show you what we're doing with these characters now.
Yeah, like, it could be. But just imagine, I'm still harkening to this point. You know how dirty they did Professor X. Imagine if they did this to freaking Logan and Hugh Jackman.
Oh yeah, fans be they'd be very angry, like they
Hmm.
were because in my screening when I went to see the movie, the people were cheering loudly when they saw all of these characters, even Black Bolt, and I questioned that. I don't know, maybe somebody was drinking a lot. The person that was cheering for that, but when they saw the characters get killed, I hear nothing but anger. It's people cussing and everything. So they was not happy to see that.
Wow.
So yeah, when they started killing people off, they was very
Yeah.
angry.
Well, yeah. I mean, who would be happy with that? What was the thinking going into behind that, especially fan favorites? And also, how the, think about that fight scene, right? Think about when they faced off with Wanda. If you're all a team and you work together, right? Would you stand there while the leader of the team was put through the spaghetti grinder? Would you just look at each other and go, "What is going on?" No, you might try to help him. You might do something while he's screaming, getting shredded into spaghetti. Or you might
Yeah,
go into action then and not have a smirk on your face, like, "Oh, gee, that's weird."
yeah, that was very weird. Captain Marvel looking at Peggy like, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah, and not and then now let's react after
Yeah.
this guy has already gotten killed. Yes, that was very silly.
I didn't have an issue with that, and I'm probably the only person on this universe who does not have an issue with that. Um, for me, that scene, because people just like they was cheering for you for in your theater, Richard, they were literally standing up to actually see if that was Patrick Stewart. So that's how it was like, and they were angry when that scene happened. But here's why I'm not mad. Wanda is a Nexus being. They never fought a Wanda before. And
Mhm.
so she can easily outmaneuver them. Secondly, it reminded me of the first episode of Invincible. Remember when I forgot who the Omni Man came and destroyed the entire league in like 2 seconds?
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
So that's the only reason why I did not have a problem with that. I wish we would have gotten more from them in general and the Illuminati. But I felt that this was supposed to be, their version of the world's strongest, mightiest team, and how Reed Richards was supposed to be the smartest man alive. Because she's a Nexus being, everyone was just stupid. And you had Peggy Carter getting decapitated. Not, no, she wasn't decapitated. Her waist was kind of slid, they did the whole thing with that. And then you had Captain Marvel, which was nice to see Monica Rambeau in it, but with the whole jetpack thing, and a statue fell on her. So it was just comedic in that way of how she was able to completely wipe out everyone. And the only person who actually stood the longest was Patrick Stewart. But because
Hmm.
I feel her being that Nexus being, that's why his neck said crack, snapple, and pop. It was just he tree got to the point where he was the only one who could reach the real, like the Wanda that was still there, and he was
I
trying to pull her out.
I think he only lived longer because his chair moves about the speed of the scooters they give you at Disney World to get around.
Yeah. Well, he's also you was just chilling in the cut with Doctor Strange and what's his name, the
And Baron Mordo.
Mordo.
yeah, which was another
Yeah,
weird thing.
yeah. I was very disturbed. I mean, I'm glad that he survived. He didn't get killed because we know this is Hollywood. We know what they like to do in Hollywood. But I did not like that this character just seemingly disappeared from the movie altogether. So I don't know what's going to happen with him in the future movies.
Well, Mordo sucked in every multiverse. Because remember, he was trying to kill all the sorcerers in the first Doctor Strange,
Yeah,
and in this one,
and,
he didn't really care anyone died.
yeah, you're right. And one quick thing I will add: I believe it was Chris or Carlos mentioned earlier we didn't get Loki. I will admit this. Maybe I'm the only one that thought this. The scene where Doctor Strange and America Chavez arrive at this other universe, and you see the silhouette of the person standing where the statue. I thought for a second that could have been Loki because it was the same green outfit. And then it's Mordo. So I said, "Oh, well, okay." But yeah, I thought that could have been Loki the
Well,
way they had that silhouette,
well
but it
that
wasn't.
and that's where I would have appreciated what Chris said earlier. It would have been cool if that statue was Kang.
Yeah. Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
at least even if you're gonna go through all this, I would have appreciated it if they would follow their own rules. Because you're making it like you're making it sketchy, like what you're trying to establish as the multiverse. It feels like there's different types of multiverses at this point. There's a multiverse of multiverses at this point, and I don't know which rules apply to which ways, and it gets iffy, man. But yeah, you know if you're gonna make the TV shows relevant to the stories, might as well just go all in at this point.
Hmm.
That is also very true. So, kind of doubling back a little bit with America Chavez, I just wanted to say that I hated how they had her character. Maybe if they had a Disney Plus series, because I came in not knowing anything about her aside from she can punch the air and it's a multiverse. It just mentioned slowly that her parents were gay. It was just a mention when she had that memory thing and she stepped in, and she kind of put her parents in some other multiverse where they were never seen again. It was kind of, we never mentioned it again. And so that
Yeah,
to me was bothering.
yeah, that's a good point because she never made it a point to say that's gonna be my mission. At the end of the day,
Mhm.
she was just goofing around doing the little circle things at the end, and I'm like, well, aren't you? Don't you have the motivation of getting your moms back? Well, like, give me something. Give me an arc.
Yeah,
Give me
where
something to look
where
forward
was
to.
the typical like end of the action movie scene where she punches a hole like and she's got her little knapsack on. It's like I'm gonna go find my family, and she just punches a hole somewhere and go. No, she's just training in the Tibetan
Well,
temple.
to answer that question, I think it's very telling because I mean, I'm pretty sure that Dana can confirm this or deny it. Kevin Feige had an interview recently where he said that now they're going to start putting together the 10-year plan for what's happening with Marvel. I think that's very evident because what you just said right now, that should have been her mission statement, right? To go back, go find out what happened to her parents. Now, they didn't think of any of this stuff through. So maybe now they will because they have a 10-year plan or whatever. Then they can revisit that in the future. But
Well,
I thought it was pretty silly. And the last point I will add, and then you could go, Carlos, is that I did laugh at the end where all of a sudden now I can fight. All of a sudden now I can fight Wanda. Let me punch her around a couple of times. I thought that was pretty silly because the whole movie she's like, "Oh, I'm afraid. I don't know how I'm doing this." No, Doctor Strange says, "No, you do know how you're doing this. You are able to do this. This is your power." That was pretty silly. But continue.
well, well, that's the Deus Ex Machina in this whole thing because she Wanda on a possessed body wiped the floor with the Illuminati, and I didn't want to make that rhyme intentionally, but that sounded good. Um, but she wiped the floor with them, and somehow in her real body, where she has the most power, in that temple thing where her purpose is supposed to be, and at the peak of her powers, and some girl that barely listened to what Doctor Strange said about her powers, just kicked her ass essentially, and that's something that I was like, ah, really? That was like the Deus Ex Machina of the like one of the
Yeah,
biggest ones of this movie.
because if Doctor Strange would have said that earlier in the movie would have ended
Yep.
Right.
Well,
Yep.
there's lots of things that would have ended this movie in a second. It's like everybody forgot how to use sorcery, even him. You basically beat Thanos by opening a bunch of portals with your sling ring. Remember the Guardians were flying through and Spider-Man was kicking him in the face and they like wrapped his hand up and all that shit. What happened to that? Why could you do that? Why could you throw her all over the earth and just fucking confuse her? Throw her
What?
to space.
Why couldn't what's his homeboy, the Asian dude, when he fell down the rock?
Why didn't
Why-
he use the portal to just go back? He could have warped right back there. He did it before. Early in the movie, he was falling off the building. He opened up a portal to shoot himself in safely onto the street. Yet he falls off Wondagore Mountain, and what saves him is he uses a cord, and then he gets knocked out conveniently for half the movie. He's
Yep.
unconscious.
Mhm.
Because they wanted you to believe that character didn't make it because you saw when he got thrown off. It's like, oh, so maybe he did die, and then you don't find out until later. Oh, he did survive. I guess that's what they were thinking.
Going back to America Chavez, one of the things that irked me and is only going to irk me in this panel because it's specifically to who I am. So America Chavez is Mexican. If for those that don't know, I didn't read the comics. I don't know. I don't know. I didn't even know who she was before this movie, but she uses Mexican vernacular, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. She's Mexican, and then it turns out that her homeworld is something that has nothing to do with Mexico,
Yeah. No,
and I'm
Carlos,
like,
she's not Mexican. In the comic originally, she was from like another planet. She was basically like Superman. So unless she's from the planet Mexico, like there's nothing Mexican about her. She's an alien.
Yeah.
yeah. So it's something that, like I said, it's something that's specifically irks me. It's like you come up with a character that speaks in a specific vernacular in Spanish, and it has nothing to do of where that place is or where she came from. It's like imagine having a New York accent and you're from fucking Mars. I'm like, you know, it's dumb. Like, but that's probably just me.
Okay. So I was wondering, we got rid of the America Chavez part. You touched lightly on King. We do know that King will be in Ant-Man 3. We do know that because Sylvie killed King, Doctor Strange's spell went completely awry, and this is kind of why we got the madness of the multiverse. Um, would it have been a better movie if we kind of saw Kang, if it tied in? Because he's gonna be in Loki 2 and he's gonna be in Ant-Man 3. Do you want him in every movie?
Well, you need hints of him because they did hints of Thanos in almost every movie leading up to Infinity War. I mean, when he goes and like you see him turn around and smile at the end of Avengers, right? The guy, the
Mhm.
um, I forgot what those the Chitari or whatever. They go back and then he turns around and smiles. He gets the glove in Age of Ultron. Fine, I'll do it myself. Like, you need little hints of your big bad. You're building up to him, right? You can't just skip and jump and assume people have Disney Plus. Don't assume anybody's watching that shit, right? You have to assume people are just watching your movies. They're just going to the theater and they're just enjoying your popcorn fodder. You have to assume that that's all they know, right? Therefore, you need to have your big bad in there. Nobody knows what happens in Loki. I don't really care. You need to talk about that shit in the main films, right? Everything leads up to Kang, right? Like nobody watched the last episode of Loki. Just assume they didn't see the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory acting going on in there, and assume they don't know who this guy is. And you need to show him, and you need to show him as Kang, not as Willy Wonka. We need to see Kang, the Conqueror, the guy who's like, holy shit, he's so awful. He has giant statues. He owns a TV. He owns everything, and he's coming. Like, you need to be afraid, right? We're not afraid of him. We don't know who he is. No, if you watch this movie, who is the bad guy? Wanda, right? And then uh the second post credit scene, like Charlize Theron shows up dressed in a purple outfit, looking like Ivan Ooze's daughter, and she's like, "You gotta come with me right now." What do you? What? Who are you? She doesn't even say her name. You have the only way you know who she is if you read the comics. Like, oh, that's Clea, I guess, right? And
uh,
Doctor Strange says cheesy third eye. Did you see the second third eye thing? I'm like, holy shit, that looks like Sci-Fi Channel quality. Who glued that on there?
so
Very
I
true.
let me just say real quick. I agree 100% with everything that Chris said. Because we know that Kang is the next big villain after Thanos. So yeah, they definitely need to be doing a better job of revealing something from this character in these movies. Um, and I also didn't know who the Charlize Theron character was until Dana told me after the movie. So yeah, they need to work on some of this stuff. It just doesn't make any kind of sense.
No one in my theater knew. It was like two people who was like, "Yay!" and everyone was like, "Who is
Right,
this?"
yeah, because it's gonna be cut into Doctor Strange. Like, nobody's gonna know who Clea is. Like, they didn't tell you. She doesn't
That
have
is
presence. It's not
very
like Spider-Man swung in at the end of the movie, like, "Oh my God, Doctor Strange, holy crap!" and hugs him. Like, okay, you know who Spider-Man is, right? If the Hulk showed up, you know who he is. If you have presence, like, or you are established in the movie. If Steve Rogers showed up, like, holy shit, Captain America's back. No, none of that. Even if Winter Soldier showed up, you would know. No, just randomly she shows up and she tells him like, no time to explain. You have to come with me right now. That's the worst thing you could do in any type of storytelling. It's the no time to explain bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
hmm So, kind of, I wanted to talk about Doctor Strange because it is technically his movie, even though it's not really. What we kind of seen like the parallel lives between Wanda and Doctor Strange. They're both kind of toxic. They have terrible behavior. You know, Strange is very arrogant, even going back from the first Strange movie, where he feels like only I can do it. I have to be the master of everything. And because of that, we kind of seen in all the universes, him and Christine just don't. It doesn't work. They're not a happy married couple. And the theme throughout the whole movie seems to be, "Are you happy?" And he never really seems to answer that, except for at the very end when he's walking down like it's the end of Soul, and he's like admiring, the people in the trees and the environment. So my question is, do you feel that this movie kind of what he went through in his arc, he is now going to kind of do things for himself instead of doing things for other people, if that makes any sense?
I can go first if you want. I have
Okay.
a couple of quick things to say. First and foremost, let me just say I like Rachel McAdams. I did not think she needed to be constantly a major part of what was going on with him in this movie, but obviously, I guess he had to get over her at some point, even though none of the results ended positively for them as an actual couple. So it is what it is. But to answer the question, um, I don't really, to answer what you said about do I think he's happy? I don't really. I mean, I don't really think he is happy. I mean, obviously, from what you told me of Clea, this is going to be his wife in the future. You know, if that's the route they decide to go. So, yeah, it makes sense that you would introduce her. I think at the end of the movie, but again, we don't know who the hell that is unless somebody reads the comics. They know who the person is. So that was very confusing. But I don't know. I don't know. I want to hear what someone else has to say. I'm a little obviously the movie is about Wanda. It's not really about Doctor Strange. You know, you talk about,
Yeah.
you go into the past of all the stuff that happened, and I like how they talk about how again referencing the snap and how it impacted everybody. That was fine, but that's about all I got as far as Doctor Strange was concerned. It's really about Wanda.
Well, the movie started off with the wedding scene and her and Rachel McAdams asking, what was her name? Christine, right? Or was that her name?
Yeah, yeah.
Christine asking Doctor Strange, "Are you happy?" Obviously, the answer is no, but he answers yes. And at the end of the movie, well, and then he remembers like, oh, like this was a person that I should have been with the whole time, but it was my arrogance that led for me to not be with her. Okay, now flash forward to the other Christine from the other universe that lost her Doctor Strange, and it's like, okay, we had these adventures together. I saved your life, you saved mine, and now is my time or my turn to sort of set things right. Nope, nothing happened. She went back to her world. He went back to his, back to square one. So there was like no arc. It's essentially just the same place. And I guess that's what Clea is supposed to signify is sort of the change in his
No,
life. That
you're wrong, Carlos. He had an arc. He finally realized he had to fix his watch. That was the arc.
oh, that's yeah, okay. Yeah, that did happen.
That's perfect.
It's even a watch fixing. Like he's able to move on from Christine. He's no longer chasing her down, probably in any of the universes. No?
Well, the watch is a sentimental gift from her, so I guess that is a sign of him moving on. I don't know if they want to get philosophical with it. I didn't really see all of that. I do want to make this comment though, since Carlos mentioned it. Or rather, he was talking about this, and it brought me back to this. What did y'all think of the Fantasia fight scene between Doctor
Oh
Strange
my
and
god.
evil Doctor Strange?
I loved
Uh,
it, but it was terrible. But I loved it.
And it
Well,
was
it
kind
shows
of
that
weird.
energy.
Yeah, it was bizarre because I didn't. When it started, I was like, okay, he flung some notes at him, and then they kept going with it, and it kept building and building. I'm like,
mm.
really? You're throwing music at each other?
Yeah, that
Okay.
was my thing. I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool, but it's the classic. They just stuck too long with this same trope. I'm like, oh, this is uh this is getting too much. Can you do something different?
Yeah, I actually didn't mind it because it did kind of, break up because a lot of the action here is just people like throwing magic at each other and, like colors and stuff. So I think it was like an interesting way to kind of break it up and make it seem more interesting. But I do agree, they probably spent a bit too long on it. But I thought it was cool though.
Well, I didn't think. I think this movie lacked taking advantage of all the stuff that they introduced. You have you had the stuff that was introduced in the first Doctor Strange movie, like um, where the ancient one like just touched his forehead and he flew through the astral realm and all these dimensions and all this stuff, all that cool shit that they did in that first movie, they never
The mirror
touched
world.
that again. Yeah, they, the fact that he can actually project, they never used that. The fact that American Chavez can punch through any dimension. You get that quick montage where they're flying through other dimensions before they land in the 838 world. They go through like a dinosaur world, and they go through a noir world. They go through like these quick clips. It would be like, wouldn't the movie have been so much cooler if Wanda was chasing them through all these different dimensions? Like they end up in fast talking high pants dimension. They end up in the dinosaur world. And they end up in like the one where they're made out of paint. I don't know. It's like it's just like neat little things that they just touched on, but they never elaborate on. You just get stuck in that 838 world, and then you get a little bit in that destroyed universe where he fights evil Strange.
Well,
You
that's I
know,
mean that's the whole irony of the movie title. It's like Multiverse of Madness. I'm like, we went through you know we went through like 10, 15 universes in a span of seconds. Like this is running on a fucking PS5 SSD, and this is Ratchet and Clank, and we spent most of the time in one of them. So this the multiverse of madness. It was just one. It wasn't really many. We just got a glimpse of several.
I hated how they utilized the multiverse that way because even if you're in a different multiverse, what you said 838, that was the one that they landed on.
yeah,
There was nothing really different aside from, oh, we walk on red. I don't they didn't do anything to kind of differentiate that. And I would have appreciated more when he was in that weird world with Dark Strange, which the Sorcerer Supreme, because I liked what they was doing with the graphics there, even though it was kind of weird. Yeah, it we never got the multiverse that we were kind of promised. So that and then so yeah, I just didn't like that part at all. So another thing that I was kind of wondering was is Wanda dead? I don't think she's dead. And at this point, do we need Wanda anymore? Is she really redeemable? She keeps killing people every time you give her a chance. She switched back to being evil.
yeah. I don't know. Well, she died off screen, so I'd say no. Right? Like that's the thing with Sam Raimi or any other horror trope. Like Wong died off screen, he didn't die. I doubt she's dead. And then it doesn't matter because you have a multiverse. There's another her. We met her, and there's probably infinite other hers that you could just yank out of some other universe. America Chavez could just punch a hole like, oh, we need Wanda. Bam! I found one that isn't psycho.
I this is an unpopular opinion. I don't want to see her return at all. No variants, nothing,
Oh,
because I don't feel as though the character needs that. You've told this story about her going through this transformation, so I don't feel as though she needs to return. However, I will say this because White Vision is still out there. If that's going to leave the possibility open that she is going to return, but
wait,
I
wait.
don't think she
White
should
Vision?
return.
Yeah,
There's a
at
black
the
one?
end of the no, at the end
No,
of WandaVision, there was
WandaVision.
rebuilt Vision.
Oh,
He's like
Yeah,
all white though.
yeah, the
He's
all
not red
white.
and green.
I mean,
Yeah,
put his
that
memories inside of him. So like it's the same vision, but he's just white.
I'm pretty sure if he's returning, they're going to find a way to make her return. But I personally don't think she needs to return. I don't think what else. There's nothing else you can need to do with the character from a storytelling standpoint. But that's just my opinion.
I have a question. How come there were infinite dark holes but only one book of Vishanti?
They were
What?
How does that work?
copies. They
So
remember
that
they
was the
made
original?
copies.
So there's only
Yeah,
one copy of the
when
the good MacGuffin, but there's infinite
yeah,
bad MacGuffins? Okay. And she
yes.
destroyed all the bad MacGuffins, so there's no alternate Mount Wundagore where it was carved. Just that
No,
that one conveniently.
but remember when the eye popped up? That's because Doctor Strange when he used the Darkhold to dreamwalk.
Right, which would
It's
mean the
weird.
Darkhold still exists somewhere because he's
It's
still
inside him.
infested by it. Yeah, well,
It lives inside him. It's in his heart. Anyone else want to talk about whether or not you want to see Wanda again? You tired of her?
I'd like to see her again just because I feel like if they're going to introduce a lot of new characters like the mutants and everything, it would be cool just to see her, interact with some of the new characters. But I don't know what they could do with her story wise though, like because they've kind of blown their load as far as like Scarlet Witch stories. I think like they couldn't do a proper House of M now because it's like they've kind of like chopped up
mm,
some of the themes already and used it in other stuff.
yeah.
So I don't know what stories they would do.
Yeah, I'm similar to Gary. I like Elizabeth Olsen. I feel like she does a really good job as this character. I feel like she did a really good job at this movie. It's just unfortunate for me that I feel like they kind of misused her character. They didn't really utilize her in the best way. But it still doesn't change the fact that I don't mind seeing her in the movies. Um, you know, as long as it's not WandaVision 2 in a MCU movie. Well, I mean WandaVision 3 because we got WandaVision 2. This is this movie, but yeah, I'm kind of similar. not as strong as Rich, which indeed it probably is controversial.
So, lastly, I kind of really wanted to know, by that whole openness, it seemed like we're going into Secret Wars. Anyone is familiar with Secret Wars? It's basically Civil Wars, but remember how in King they was explaining, not King. Remember in what was it? Sorry, Loki. They was explaining how the world it opens up with each different world, and all the worlds start bickering and going to war with each other. Was that something that you are looking forward to? You have to stay alive for the next 10 years to see.
Yeah, I don't know, doing the whole battle world thing, like that place at the end where the time variance authority sends you, is you're saying that's where everyone will end up or everything will collide?
No, well, in Secret War, basically every universe, they have their own beings and creatures in there. They're fighting over dominant supremacy. So 838 will end up fighting with, I don't know, 616.
Yeah,
And then
that's
they're,
the
yeah,
battle world
yeah,
storyline.
Battle
Yeah.
World. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, because that wherever they end up after they zap you, the time variance authority zaps you, you don't die. You just end up in this like dumping ground of multiverses, right? Like
Hmm.
all the variants are there and everything that has ever existed just gets dumped there. So I'm like, is that battle world? Is that what it's going to be? I don't know. I don't know how you're going to end up in that battle world scenario. Like the original Secret Wars was Beyonder, and he plucked heroes and villains out of the Marvel Universe, dumped them on a world he created, and said, "I want to see which is stronger, good or evil." Right? That was the simple premise of Secret Wars. The whole battle world thing got really weird. I think Marvel was trying to do what DC had done years before with Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's like, hey, we have all these multiverses. Things are way too confusing. We have to consolidate them. So let's have them duke it out and kill each other, see which character is more popular, and that becomes the main 616 universe, right? We'll just pluck
Right.
characters out, stick them in there, and that clean up the kind of mess of multiple versions of characters we have. So if that's what they want to do in the movie, that's stupid, because you introduced the mess. You don't have a mess. You've now made one. So then to consolidate it with a new storyline is contrived and dumb.
Mm. Anyone else?
I'm not familiar with Secret Wars, so I'll leave it to the rest of the panel.
Okay.
Yeah, I have yet to read Secret Wars. I did hear somebody else talk about that's something they're probably leading into. And it would be cool to, if they, if they did do that, to maybe bring back some of the characters they've used, like the other Spider-Mans. Like I'd like to see Andrew Garfield Spider-Man again or something. That would be cool. But I don't know if they'll do that. But yeah,
so
it would just be cool to see some other variants and stuff.
So real quick, from what from what I'm hearing and what I'm understanding, this seems like, and for those I don't know who's seen Dragon Ball Super, but it feels like that tournament in Dragon Ball Super where all the universes fight against each other.
Yeah, exactly that.
Basically that, yes. Oh, Richard.
Oh yeah, well, last point I will add is yeah. I don't know about Wars. All thing I do know is if I learn one lesson from this movie, keep all expectations low for any Marvel movie moving forward. I will go see Thor. I will go see Black Panther, even though I'm concerned about that movie as well. But I will keep all expectations low from here on out, and even with the shows as well. I'm just going to keep all expectations low, so I will not be overly disappointed.
Yeesh.
Is
Uh,
Kugler doing the second one?
yes.
Yes.
And
Oh,
he's
okay.
doing the TV series.
Okay, so I mean, there's some faith.
Hmm. So, kind of lastly, is there anything else anyone wants to say? Cinematography, who sucked? The kids were awful in this movie. Sam Raimi does not know how to work with kids.
I don't blame him for those interactions. I blame the writing for those problems, because visually the movie was very impressive. Like all the shots, his angles, like his touches were great. Like the things you expect him to do, he did, and he brought some horror elements, and has his Dutch angles, and he has his signatures he puts on things. I thought that was all well done. It was the writing, the dialogue. You could tell where reshoots happen. It's just I don't really blame him for that.
Uh, I agree. Visually, it looked good. Uh, this is a different type of horror. Thinking of like Evil Dead, etc. But personally, if you ask me if this is a horror film, in my opinion, it's not a horror film.
No.
This is a campy, I guess you could say campy horror film, but this is not a horror film like the horror films that I would enjoy watching. So, but yeah, the visually it was okay, but yeah, as Chris mentioned, the writing and a lot of the other stuff, I was not really didn't really like too much.
Yeah, I did appreciate that it had those little hints of horror in it. I definitely wouldn't say, it was a full horror movie or anything like that, but I appreciate that it just had those little elements, because I feel like that is what brings something new to the MCU a little bit, even if it's like in a small scale. But yeah, I mean, I agree with what the rest of you have said. The cinematography was decent. He did his job. I just feel like there was a lot of issues with the writing, and I don't know what changes they made, but I'm sure those changes might have contributed to the problem also. But yeah, cinematography wise, I think it was on point.
Anyone else? Chris?
Oh, I mean, I spoke my piece. Like,
Yeah, I think it's Carlos.
I
Carlos.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I agree with everything that's been said. Um, the cinematography, the stylistic choices were the least of the worries of this movie. Um, I feel like I agree with the consistent theme here. The writing I felt like was the weakest. Um, I do enjoy. I just want to mention something we didn't talk about. I did enjoy the scene in the tunnels where Wanda is chasing Doctor Strange and the rest of the crew, and I felt like that was really well done. That kind of added to sort of the horror aspects of it. Um, but yeah, I didn't really have an issue with it with sort of a lot of the visuals. I felt like a lot of the visuals were really well done. I felt like there was a sense that this movie didn't seem like a formulaic MCU movie, which I can always appreciate. I even mentioned that during our Eternals review. As bad as that movie was, the thing I did appreciate was that it felt like it wasn't a copy and paste from all the other MCU movies. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on that.
And speaking of Eternals, I'm still upset no one addressed the fact that those big beings are still just sticking out of the ocean. Were
Yeah,
they
no,
in?
there was no mention of that
No
of
mention.
this huge being just chilling in the beach somewhere.
All right. So, if that is everything, anyone else has anything else to say, then basically, Mr. Gary Swaby, is there anything you would like to promote? Anything you're working on?
Not really, but just shout outs to you, Dana. Thanks for having us on again. And it's always good to be on the same show as Carlos and Chris. It's been a while.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm happy to be here with these fine people. And yeah, big shouts to you also, Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. I know you're putting in a lot of work on the gaming side. So yeah, that's pretty much it from me.
Mr. Bailey?
Yeah, as always, a pleasure doing these shows with all of you. Um, yeah, there is some stuff coming. We know that there's a lot of things coming next month with the Xbox Bethesda conference, so we definitely will have some words about that because a couple people have contacted me and they are not happy about the Starfield delay. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, continue to check out our content. We appreciate the continued support.
Carlos?
Yeah, make sure to check us out. Me and Chris, we're on a Throwdown Show on YouTube, on Twitch, on Twitter. That's at Throwdown Show, where we talk about all things video games. We have a show that we talk about the news of video games every Thursday, and we go over questions that the community has every Sunday, which is today. So tonight at 10:30 Eastern, if you want to check us out at Throwdown Show, we're going to be talking about all things video games, and also always appreciate the invitation. Always love talking to you guys, even though some of these movies aren't the best. But for some for me, most for Tony and for Chris. But one consistent thing is that we do appreciate having the conversation with you guys. Being able to discuss and having a platform to go over and discuss is something that we always look forward to. So appreciate you guys having us.
No problem. Mr. Sealy, anything to seal?
Yeah, yes, following that sentiment, I love doing the podcast with you guys. It was great to talk to with Gary and Rich and Dana. I appreciate you inviting me back on. Um, it's good. It's like you don't have to deal with this trash alone. We come together and discuss it, and then and cope together, and it's great.
Wonderful. So for those who are checking out on the YouTube page, we have the entire interview with the entire cast of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. We just got the interview with Danny Elfman. It is up on the site as well. So he talks about that whole musical breakdown that apparently nobody seemed to like or semi-liked. And he talks a lot about the many changes that was made. Michael Waldron, who's a scriptwriter, he had to connect all of the different Lokis, what was going on with WandaVision to this show, to this movie, which explains why there was so many different cuts and edits and hacks and dacks. Kevin Feige admitted that there were about 40 minutes of this movie that was cut, including a Tom Cruise cameo as Iron Man. That one is true. And the things that was cut is going to go into Secret Invasion, which is about the Skrull versus the Illuminati. So the Illuminati could return. Yay! So make sure you check that out. We will also have Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers, Top Gun Maverick, which is an amazing film.
Sorry, Dana, but I thought when you said Chip and Dale, I'm like, are they in the MCU now?
Well, they have the whole multiverse of Chip and Dale's in there. If you watch the trailer, everyone is
That's
back.
true. Yeah,
Roger
everyone's in it.
Rabbit is back. The Scat Cat, everything. Everyone is back. Peter Pan is in it, and he's like an adult alcoholic. It's crazy,
Uh-oh.
but yeah, right. So we have that coming up soon, along with the press conference, and we also have Top Gun Maverick. We have all of the interviews with the cast. Really great movie that I can say, and we will have Bob Burgers whenever that embargo is over with. So once again, thank you for listening to us. Have a great day, afternoon, evening, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Peace.
Peace.
Yeah, take care.
I need you.